Welcome to Nutrition Moments, and I am your host, Fadila Okunu. Here you get comprehensive information about the food we eat for us to stay healthy. Let's start with recent events and developments in the field of nutrition on NutriNews. Nigeria has the highest rate of malnutrition in Africa. What is malnutrition? What are the signs and the dangers involved? And how can this issue be tackled? That is our focus on NutriLens. With hunger on the rise, famine and drought in most developing countries, news and pictures of malnutrition cases in Africa is not pleasant to hear or see. What exactly is malnutrition?
Malnutrition is a condition whereby the person either does not have enough of nutrients to be able to live and function normally as a human being, or the person has too much of those nutrients that are required to be able to live and function as a normal human being. So in essence, malnutrition can be two ways. So it can be either over nutrition or it can be under nutrition. So which means with over, it means the person has too much of those nutrients and that can be harmful, right? And then with undernutrition, it means the person doesn't have enough of those nutrients.
Malnutrition, even as it is just a state of at which we lack even diet. We lack the particular adequate nutrients that the body needs. So once we lack that, we can always say that this person is already malnourished. But it's always in phases. We have probably the kind of severe malnutrition, we have the kind of acute malnutrition, but now it depends on how the body itself lacks this particular needed nutrients in the body.
Malnutrition is an imbalance in a person's nutrition status, which can impair a person's health and well-being. The nutritional status of a person can be measured through various ways.
Checking, right, whether a person is malnourished, right, and these include taking measurements, right, so anthropometric measurements, which include things like measuring the person's weight, measuring the person's height, right? Measuring the person's waist circumference, measuring the person's mid-upper arm circumference. So for example, in a child, if we measure the weight of the child and then the length of the child, then we're able to judge whether this child is malnourished or not. And same for an adult, the height and the weight. And then we compare it to the body mass index, which is the BMI that we would expect for that person who is at that height, and then the weight that we would expect the person to have, right? So, but that's just one. We could also take samples from the person, in which case we would then want to find out, okay, so does this person have enough of proteins in the person's body? Is there a deficiency of the vitamins and minerals? Is there a deficiency of carbohydrates in this person? So all of these ones, so we're using biochemical means to be able to find out whether that person is malnourished or the person even has excess of these nutrients in the body. Then we can also clinically detect whether a person is malnourished. So in which case we would, or a trained health worker, all right, usually a doctor, would then be able to assess the person based on the person's looks and then the signs that can be displayed when examining the person. And then there's also the dietary assessment that we can do. So we can do recalls and find out, okay, so what did you eat? Did you eat an orange? Did you eat an apple? Did you eat rice? Did you eat? So we can check all of these, right, and then be able to judge whether based on what you're eating you are malnourished, right? Whether you're taking too much or you're taking too little of some of those nutrients.
When it comes to signs and symptoms of malnutrition, health experts say it depends on the type of malnutrition a person is suffering from.
It could be signs and symptoms of overnutrition, right? Or it could be signs and symptoms of undernutrition, right? So in this part of the world, we are more concerned about undernutrition, particularly for children who are the most vulnerable. But we have also found that there's also some overnutrition that is taking place now with our children as well. And then apart from this, there are other types of malnutrition, right? Like micronutrient deficiencies. Now, usually we call this hidden hunger. So it doesn't show it, or it's not as apparent, right, as a deficiency of the macronutrients, that's the carbohydrates and the proteins and all. So the person may have a good or a BMI that is within the normal range, right, but the person may then have micronutrient deficiency same time, right? And this micronutrient deficiency can be from deficiency of vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C, vitamin D. There's a variety of micronutrients that could be deficient and will produce a variety of symptoms depending on which one is deficient. So, and micronutrient deficiencies also occur in children. At that their tender age, we don't want them to have micronutrient deficiencies, right? Because it can affect their growth and it can permanently sometimes damage them at that tender age. You would have heard statements or phrases like stunting, like wasting, and like being underweight, right? And then of course being overweight as well. If a child is suffering from stunting, then it means that that child's height is too low for that child's age, because what it means is that that child has not had enough nutrition to be able to grow as much as that child should have grown by that time in that child's life. And it's as a result of malnutrition, and the damage has occurred, and then the damage is also occurring as per cognitive function. But the one we are seeing visibly is the manifestation in the little height that we are seeing. So wasting is when the child's weight is then smaller than it should be for that child's height. So usually when you see children that are wasted, they are really, really thin. They are very, very thin, because wasting is a measure of acute malnutrition. It means the child has grown in length or height up to where the child should be, but the child's weight did not catch up with the child's height. So it's an acute thing that is happening, as opposed to stunting, whereby it's a measure of chronic malnutrition, which means that the child has not been having adequate nutrition for some time, and then this has now affected the child's growth, and so the height is now too small for that child's age, right? And then we also talk about being underweight, which means the child's weight is too small for the child's age. In adults, we usually judge them with their body mass index, that's their BMI. So when the BMI is less than 18, I believe, or thereabout, or is it 18.5 or thereabout, then the person is then undernourished, because that means the person has not gained enough weight, is not taking adequate nutrition to have an adequate body mass index. Right? Then if it's between about that over 18.5 to about is it on 24.9 or thereabout. So if it's between there, then we say that the person's body mass index is adequate.
Doctors say preventing malnutrition starts from conception to the first 1,000 days in a child's life. They also lay emphasis on educating everyone towards healthy eating.
To be able to solve the malnutrition problem, we ought to actually start from before people start to develop risk factors for malnutrition. So looking at that point, we should be ensuring that we already have policies in place, and then we are training and educating children, right, so that they know the dangers of malnutrition. They know that they should eat, right, properly from the different food classes. They should avoid fast foods, right, and foods with high fat content, and they should eat lots of fruits and vegetables. So if we start from there, right, before they develop the risk factors of, getting malnourished, which would be having a poor diet, all right, then we have started to win. And then of course, for those that already have those risk factors, right, then we would be looking at giving them health education on how to change their lifestyles, all right, how to change their diet so that they're eating from the different food groups. Each time they take a meal, they're eating carbohydrates, they're eating a bit, some of fats and oils, they're eating proteins, they're eating from the fruits and vegetables to provide vitamins and minerals, right, for them. The nourishment of a child when in utero, such that the mother is taking adequate nutrition even before the child is born, because the child's nutrition comes from the mother. So she's eating a good diet, she's not overworked, she's not overburdened, right, and she's able to then have a child that is healthy, right. Then once the child is born, that breastfeeding is key, all right. So exclusive breastfeeding should start from birth as much as possible, within the first 30 minutes of delivery, and that the first milk that comes out, colostrum, is very important in the nutrition and the protection of a child, so that child doesn't fall ill. So educating our women and our entire population so that they can even support the woman. The child is then breastfed exclusively. Exclusively means the child doesn't get water, because there is more than enough water in breast milk.